record. Okay, so we're now recording. But we are here to talk about Strategic Grant Making 2.0. And what we're going to try to do with our strategic grant making today is to do some application of the concepts of strategic grant making. As affiliate funds, everybody on the call here, your affiliate has been through a kind of strategic planning process that was an abbreviated strategic plan where you really thought about what are the areas of the community into which we want to focus our resources, so funds like this that I'm going to be talking about, and our leadership. And so we're going to base a lot of the strategic grant making we talk about today. We're going to think about those plans that we've done. So that's part of what we're doing. And so today what we're going to do is learn a little bit more about the Place Matters funds, and I'm talking about those in terms of donor intent. So what is the intent of the foundation or group of partners that gave these funds for how they want them to be used? We're going to develop some criteria for an RFP that we can release within the Kentucky Promise Zone so that, organizations or agencies can apply for these funds through an RFP. And then we're going to determine reviewing and reporting procedures. And in the context of that, we'll think about what kind of review committee could we put together to respond to this RFP that gets sent out. And then what are some procedures, because the donor of these funds is interested in results. So they want to have some reporting back from the organizations that receive these funds. And so we'll think about that. And in the context of that, the foundation will introduce everybody to a new tool that they are going to make available to the affiliates and provide support on. And that is a platform called Foundant. And so we'll just take a really quick look at Foundant. But it's basically a platform that will allow you to take in applications that way, to do reviews that way and review online together, and to take in and to accept reports from if you decide you want to accept reports from grantees. And so that's what we're going to be looking at today. So I want to start out by talking a little bit about the Place Matters funds and giving you all some background on those. Place Matters is a project that is funded by a group of funders. It's a conglomerate of funders called Blue Meridian Partners. And the funding for this work actually came through Partners for Education at Berea College. They got a grant from Blue Meridian Partners to do work in the Kentucky Promise Zone, mainly in the field of education, which is where they work, of course. They also have part of this grant to focus on what they're calling neighborhood work, and that is work to create communities in which children and youth are safe, healthy, and supported. And so that is one of the criteria for how they want to see these funds used within the community, that they can support projects that are encouraging creating these types of communities. The other piece of donor intent is because this project, the funding is focused solely on the Kentucky Promise Zone, the way the grants are used, it has to be used for people who live within the Kentucky Promise Zone. And then the other thing that the Place Matters donor is interested in is that they are interested in collective impact. And when we talk about collective impact, that could be impact meaning that several organizations from different sectors come together and make an impact, or it can also be a regional impact. So thinking about how do we try to use these funds to have an impact across the Promise Zone as a region. And then something that is somewhat related to donor intent, but also related to the fact that these are grant funds coming from a granting organization, is there is a timeline for them. And so with the timeline, we'll release this RFP, but funded projects have to be completed by June 30th, 2022, and then reports submitted back. And actually what's going to be helpful is if the reports get to the foundation and they get him to Brushy Fork, so that we can then go up the chain and take them to PFE, Partners for Education, by July 31st, 2022. And so we're looking at about a year's timeline for these grants, that they would be the projects for the grants. So some additional considerations. Again, this donor, as I said, is interested in results. And so they want to understand how the funds were used, how many people were served with these funds, and then we have talked about collecting these kinds of human interest stories so that they understand the human impact. We have statistics and numbers that we can share back around results, but also some of those human stories about the impact that the grants have are important. And so that's why we want to put a kind of a reporting process in with these grants. And did I say the amount yet? So it's $84,600 that's available to be distributed within the Kentucky Promise Zone. So that's the amount. And I put it on several slides because I thought I'm going to forget to say the amount. And so it's on there. But, before we get into talking about criteria, I want to quickly share with you where we are with some of the affiliate strategic planning processes and what I did with those plans. And this is not everything that's in all those plans, but I thought, what are the things that look to me like out of those plans they might have impact on creating communities in which children and youth are safe, healthy, and supported. And so these are just some examples. And so in the first column, you'll see where I've got topic. And the first topic is that we would assist the needy or serve vulnerable people. That came up across the board in plans. Sometimes it was more directly concentrated on a particular population, and sometimes it was broader. Every plan also talked about building self-sufficiency. And so to me, those are things, if you're assisting families in need and you're building self-sufficiency, you are helping create communities where children are safe, healthy, and supported. And so if we look across the counties or the affiliates that have an asterisk are, of course, those who are within the Kentucky Promise Zone. So that's Leslie, Perry, and Upper Cumberland that have done plans so far. Floyd, Jackson, and Pikeville have also done plans. And here are what people have talked about. In Floyd, programs that serve the needy and emergency funds for families, for low-income families. In Jackson County, they got a little more focused on a particular population. They identified as a particular needy population that they're seeing felons who are returning and reintegrating back into the community. And so they're trying to figure out how to serve them. In Leslie County, there was a focus on services for people who are in recovery from substance abuse addiction. In Perry County, they talked about social issues and housing as a specific focus area. And so social issues is pretty broad, but then they have that specific housing. Pikeville talked about implementing a WorkWorks program to help people get back into the workforce, as even if they're receiving assistance. How can that community foundation serve that program? And then in Upper Cumberland, there was a conversation around really supporting programs that serve vulnerable populations. So it was a broad approach, but knowing that any investments that were made would be to serve those people who are vulnerable. And then the second row here talks about youth activities and engagement. And in some form or fashion, most of the community foundations had that included. Floyd County, developing youth leaders, also making sure that students were accessing scholarships. So it's not just offering scholarships through the foundation, but also making sure that students had access to them. Jackson County talked about a philanthropy club, creating an after-school program because there was no place for students after school. And again, they had scholarships in their conversations as well. But they were also talking about not just scholarships through the foundation, but how do we make students in our school system aware of scholarships overall so that they're applying for them. Leslie County talked too about building youth philanthropy and developing youth philanthropy, and then creating programs that focused on life skills and mental health. And if I'm remembering correctly, in their plan, they actually talked about having youth drive those programs through some of their youth philanthropy work. Perry County has some neighborhood councils down below, so we're going to get to that, what that might mean in terms of potentially for creating communities where children are safe, healthy, and supported. Pikeville talked about physical and social activities and life skills programs, and Upper Cumberland also, I think, in serving those vulnerable populations, that's broad enough that, that includes youth in some way, I'm sure. So those disengaged youth or that kind of thing. So, and then we talked, health and wellness is one of the things too, that, if you're providing health and wellness, that includes young people. Jackson County specifically talked about walking trails. mental health issues for the returning felons. Again, they had that returning felons focus. Pikeville actually is talking about developing a mobile telehealth facility that would go from community to community. But I think in our conversations, we talked about schools with that as well. And then the community engagement and leadership line is the last line. And Floyd County is talking about how do they reach out to all the communities that are around them. And they said, we're going to think about having community days where we actually include, and they talked about specifically including youth in the community days and also including youth in engaging youth in thinking about other aspects and maybe even having a youth panel or a youth committee that helps the foundation think about youth issues. Jackson County, the community engagement and leadership could include that youth philanthropy. I mean, that's a leadership and engagement piece, teaching young people about youth. Same for Leslie County. Perry County is talking about doing these neighborhood councils, which are a little bit like the community days, but is really more creating permanent councils there. So what about including youth on those? Pikeville, again, could include those youth social activities they talked about. Those are youth activities. And then in Upper Cumberland, talked about ways to reinventing ways to connect after COVID. And you all tell me if I'm missing anything. It's been a while since we've done the Upper Cumberland plan, but and then also creating ways for the foundation to be an incubator for ideas in the community and to develop philanthropic ideas among community members. And again, I could see ways that you could engage youth in that work. So that's just an overview. And again, that's not everything that was in those plans because there was a lot in there, but these are the pieces that just quickly yesterday, using my own thinking, I pulled out. And it's not saying that anything that's done with these funds has to be used this way, but it's just to give and generate ideas and to show how much connection there is even among affiliates that are not within the Kentucky Promise Zone, that there is connection among the different kinds of programming that you all want to do. So I'm going to stop talking now because I think I've thrown a lot of information at you all and give a chance for observations, for questions, and that kind of thing.
I think it's interesting how a lot of that overlaps. Every county or community is different, but yet we see that there's a lot of overlap and a lot of need that lines that's parallel in most of the counties. Mm-hmm. I think that's very interesting.
And how do the affiliates, the board members who are with affiliates, feel about using the strategic plans for this kind of strategic grant making? Are there thoughts about that just overall?
Well, I've always found that if you can link what you're doing back to your strategic plan, you look much more deliberate and stronger to your funder, I think that's very, very wise. Of course, the Upper Cumberland has these broad reaching things because, I mean, we're a broad affiliate, but it's nice to be able to go back and to point to how this directly relates to that strategic plan. I think it's very wise.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, well, having shared that, what I'd like to do next is talk about criteria. And again, just as a reminder, the criteria that are donor intent criteria is that the work has to happen within the Kentucky Promise Zone. The populations who are served have to live there is really specifically how they express that we are creating communities where children or youth are safe, healthy, and supported, and that there is we can connect it to collective impact. Ideally, So.
Well, and Donna, just to share with you, collective impact can also mean that you're saying, yeah, we're dealing with the education of a child, but we realize that you can't really learn if you don't have housing. or if you're homeless, or if you're hungry. And so the collective impact is trying to get that child educated, but making sure that other needs are met. So that's another
right.
way to be able to look at it. So yeah,
That's right. And they are, I mean, that is, you're spot on with how, the folks are thinking about this, the donor is thinking about this, is that if you don't have children, that are in a place where they can learn, so these grants don't have to be education based. They could be housing, they could be health, they could be social activities, they could be engaging youth, shifting. One of the things that they talk about often too is shifting power to youth and sharing power with youth, so that how do we put youth in a decision-making role in some way in our communities? Not saying that they have to focus on that, the grants have to focus on that either, but that's just another area that this particular funder I know has been talking about. So what we could do next is actually create some criteria here, and just talk about what are other criteria that you all would think about creating for something like this. Or would you all prefer to leave it more open for your grantees when you do an RFP? So given everything you've heard, what are your thoughts?
Well, Donna, I have a question. It's $84,600. Are we going to divide that by 8 counties and try to distribute it that way? Or is that a discussion part, or what?
I believe that is open for discussion as to whether, especially if you think about, are there projects that you could fund where multiple counties might participate? If
interesting.
Then I think that is completely open for discussion. And I don't know if folks from the foundation have any thoughts on that you'd want to share.
Hi, I will chime in. I don't think it's a requirement. I honestly think it's looking at the pool of applications that come in, because there might be something that is for 4 counties in the promise zone, and it's not just one county specific. And I also think it's up to that evaluation board that's created, who the evaluators are for making those decisions. And I don't foresee the applications being viewed on a rolling basis. I kind of see it as a sit-down meeting where we have all of the applications at once, and then you can kind of parse out where that money is going to go. You can look at a map, see where it's being impacted, see what's being left out.
Is there any incentive that they be an affiliate of the Foundation of Appalachian Kentucky? Because you're fully aware that there are 2 counties that do not have an affiliate.
That's a good question too, Sandy. And they do not have to be an affiliate, the Foundation for Appalachian Kentucky.
Because they do have foundations. They just don't have one affiliated with the, okay, that's
right.
cool. So,
right.
Okay. All righty. And yeah. And the Upper Cumberland's Laurel County is going to be left out, but that's okay. They got included in others where other people were left out. So we're all right.
Yeah. And we actually, just before you came on, we were talking about how, not all the counties in Upper Cumberland are in the zone. So yeah.
But yeah, we'll get over it. They'll get over it. So
yeah. And maybe what would be helpful too, and I'm trying to remember what slide that's on. Let's look at this. So before we go to criteria, let's talk about the review process, because that might help us think about the criteria actually. So Kristen, I'm glad you brought that up. What we had talked about is that maybe there is, that this is a one-time RFP process. So we create an RFP, we release that RFP. There's a committee of reviewers that come from the affiliate foundations that are within the promise zone. But then we might also have that actually representatives from all 8 promise zone counties. So that would include bringing in somebody from Harlan and Letcher. And then 2 neutral parties, perhaps from other affiliates, that could help make decisions. Neutral meaning they're not from the promise zone. They don't have a dog in that fight in terms of, I want this to happen in my county. So, and it's not gonna be a fight. I shouldn't have used, that's a bad analogy, sorry. But so we're talking about a review committee of 10 people that could look at these together, and if we provide to them criteria to use to evaluate the grants, then that will make their jobs easier.
Okay, you've got an even number. Do you want to have an odd number with there being 3 neutral parties instead of 2?
Mm-hmm.
Great idea.
Yep.
Bill,
yeah.
the other thing is, if you didn't want to do that, then you could just say that it has to be a unanimous decision rather than a majority decision, which, pros and cons on that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay. So let's imagine this, that, oh, go ahead, Kristen.
Well, I was going to say that within the evaluation platform, the e-grants that we're going to have a little overview in a little bit later, there is a way to evaluate on a scale, and it gives you a percentage. So even the review committee could say anything that gets over 80%, we're going to look at and divide up that money, or just we're going to take the top 10 applicants based on this ranking and do that. So I feel like that's a discussion with the review committee to see kind of how that rating system works for them for the evaluation. That we don't necessarily have to have unanimous consent or 3 out of 5. They can choose to do it that way. That's fine. But we could also have set up the evaluation from the beginning to give them that scale that rates, and it will rank them.
So it awards points essentially for different parts of the application. Mm-hmm. And so if we think about that in terms of, what's important in these applications, what would we want to score them on as a group? And, I think I may stop sharing my screen so you all can see each other better. Is that good? Because I don't think we need the screen up at this point.
So one of the things is there, and I haven't gotten this, but does it all need to go? I mean, can an organization, a nonprofit, apply for a grant in this? First of all, do they have to be a nonprofit, a 501c3?
Maybe not.
Okay, and so then the second question is, will we allow them to set aside money for overhead or for salaries to try to administrate this program, or is it expected by the donor that the money go directly to benefiting a child between birth and graduation?
And we do not have any specific instructions from this donor that these cannot be used to pay people to do the work. But I think what there needs to be is a correlation between the work that person is doing and some service to a population that results in children being safe, healthy, and supported.
Sandy, those questions have made me even think, does the organization have to be headquartered in the Promise Zone? Or is it just an organization that serves that region? What are those parameters also?
Yeah, and that was really tough because some organizations with a footprint outside the Promise Zone are super effective in delivering services within the Promise Zone. So it would be challenging. I agree. I think that's another question that we need to answer.
I really like the way you all are approaching this and thinking of the questions that you have to ask. So I'm going to record those questions and then we can generate answers to them. So what other questions do you think the grant reviewers have to know answers to in order to award points to grants?
Well, guys, I'm sorry. I paused. I took a deep breath for somebody else to jump in there. So, okay. So, but anyhow, so the question, will we give priority to nonprofit organizations over, say, like a school district? And if so, would it need to be a public school district or a private school district?
First of all, I think it should be non-profit one, because the for-profit, let them make money on their own. This is for people who cannot afford it, or it's for people who are disadvantaged for some reason, and we want to make sure that we are serving them. I mean, that's my feeling. I could be wrong, but. And rather than private, I would go for public, because if someone is rich enough to send their children to private schools, then they should be rich enough to pay how that school works, because my grandchildren go to private school, and that school collects money even from us. We are grandparents. They are in Cincinnati. But they will send us my grandchildren's pictures, and I'm a sucker, and I send money. So, I mean, I just contradicted my own statement, but I would go for nonprofit and public school.
And it sounds like when you're talking about private schools, Sharika, you're talking about private schools that charge tuition to their students. And so if
Yes,
there
yes.
is a mission-based private school, perhaps, would you see that differently?
Well, my children go to mission-based. And when it comes to mission, like they go to Catholic school. And they have a mission that they will talk against other faiths. My children grandchildren, look, their dad is a Catholic, mom is Hindu. And one child says, I'm Hindu Christian. Another one says, I'm Catholic Christian. And I said, guys, don't worry about what you are, just little ones still. Just be good human beings. But their school is teaching those things, putting ideas in their small heads. So I'm against missionary schools if they are trying to propagate their religion. But like independent school, Painesville Independent School, it is a private. My children went there. They were charging like $200 a year, which is no big deal. But this is, of course, 30 some years ago. But that is private, or it's called independent school. Maybe county does pay, I'm not sure. But we did pay because we are out of county.
Okay, good. What other questions then?
Well, I would just add to what Sharika was addressing. There are schools like the David School, which is over here, that used to charge whatever people could pay. Right now it's tuition free, but if I remember right, and Sandy and others can tell me, but I think the Redbird Mission ran a school for low-income kids that were primarily for low-income families, and there are similar nonprofits that provide those services. I mean, I agree. I think it's one of the criteria is, does the grant affect, and are the primary recipients low-income people and people who need help in one way or another? It might be children, it might be adults at this point, if you're talking about kids. And I don't know that a school district needs to be eligible, but maybe there are special programs for which they don't have funding.
Well, one thing I want to point out on our public school system is that several school districts are promised neighborhoods. And so they are actually already have a few more resources than, say, some of our other school districts. And so I don't know if we want to give an extra point if you're not a promised neighborhood school district. to try to even the field out just a little bit on that.
So thinking about this, and I've seen this done with other grant applications, we could really, in the application itself that's created, very first question could be, are you a school system that's applying, or are you a nonprofit or a for-profit business? And then if it's a school system, it can branch to a question that says, are you a Promise Neighborhood, school system, or any of these programs? We could even make them choose the different program options. Are you any of these? And that doesn't necessarily, exclude them, but we get a broader sense of the information that the evaluation team needs to make those funding decisions that I think you all are discussing. Are you public, private, public school, private school? Are you mission-based, or, whatever that looks like? We can create those questions to help figure that out so that the evaluation committee doesn't have to do that digging. That information is provided up front. But these are the things we need to know so that when the application form is created, that they're in there. So good thought process. I like the track that we're on, and Donna's taking great notes.
Yep, I'm taking notes madly, and I will share them back with everyone. It's going to be really hard for us to come down to decisions on this today exactly, probably, but we'll at least have something to move forward and form a committee to really do this work.
I might just add that you may not want to limit it to school districts. We had a grant through the health department here, and the project was to deliver healthy foods at a local swimming pool to get kids interested in eating better snacks than the stuff you normally find. And in connection with that, both in publicity and the products that that we handed out, as I remember, we needed some funds. I mean, we were fortunate to get a grant, I think, through, I can't remember who funded part of that, but there would be opportunities through health departments and others on these farm to table grants and that sort of thing. So I would just point out, you might want to make it a little broader than school districts.
Yes, I agree, John. Including the health departments, they could do some really exciting stuff with this if given the opportunity. So could our community action agencies.
Can we ask for their tax information, financials, before granting them? Because they might just, people are, I want. We want to stay away from that. And we can see from financials where they're collecting from, where they're spending, what is their status, do they really need the money the foundation wants to provide? So we should concentrate on their finances. I think we can ask. I hope we can ask.
We can actually have them upload a spreadsheet, and whatever we want, the profit loss statement, whatever they're going to ask for their, tax return, whatever that looks like.
Yeah, their assets, their liabilities, the whole 9 yards.
And we can do that. The one thing that I would like to just remind people about is that we have large organizations that can apply, but we also have small grassroots, nonprofits that don't necessarily have that sophistication. So we do have to find that balance of what is everybody going to have? Are they going to have, their 990 if they're a nonprofit, or what that looks like? I do think there is a solution there. And then there was another thought of the finances. It'll come back to me. We'll go with that.
But I think part of what you're talking about, Kristen, gets at something about the size of the organization And this gets at that earlier point too of, what about these big organizations that may not be located in the promise zone, but fund good work there? But then you may also have little tiny nonprofits that are doing good work. They're just not as savvy and not as able to get those big grants. And so is this an opportunity? And do the affiliates want to take this as an opportunity to channel some funds to those smaller organizations to say, let's support some of their work, because they may not have. So, I mean, just a thought that could be, could they get points if they are actually located within one of the communities that's being served?
I thought of the other thing. It was whether or not the committee, and I don't think that's a decision that's made today. I think it's the evaluation committee, but is this a grant that is a range, $2,500 to $5,000? Is it up to 10? What that looks like? Because we also want to weigh how many hoops they have to jump through to get $5,000. Is it even, worth it? Is the evaluation committee going to even look at those things once they sit down with them? Because we don't want to make it too hard and exclude our grassroots nonprofits that don't have a lot of grant application experience, but that also maybe it could push them a little so that they do get more experience and they realize that they need to have a profit loss statement or, an asset sheet, what that looks like, so that they are raising the bar for themselves as well. So just keeping those things in mind, that it is a balance.
I think we're going to have some type of range because you've got to use that as a carrot to get people to even set aside the time to put together the application. So so we've got to figure out something to offer as a range on that maximum or something. Because again, even the smallest nonprofit, it's not like they're sitting around with tons of free time going, what do I do today? Everybody is trying, if they don't do this, they're giving up something else, Oh, match. What about a match?
Yep. What about a match? What do people think about that?
I mean, I happen to like in-kind matches, but they're a bear to document and to monitor. And my board, and Claudia will tell you too, they have, in our last two granting cycles we've done 50% match. But that can be, if it's a big grant, that can be almost, prevent you from applying.
It could always be bonus points if you can provide match for this. It's not required, but it might, if you can leverage other dollars, let us know. Something like that. We don't make it required, but it would help. Or at least give more information about who the other players are that are interested in the work that your organization's doing.
If you're a small nonprofit, though, you're not going to have a lot for match.
You are totally right about that. And Sandy's point, it's hard to document. It's hard to show proof. And how long do we want to give them to get match? And what happens if they don't get match?
Some grants say that grants are not or matches are not required, but it's like you get extra points if you can show them. So that, that might be an option.
That's true, but it does then immediately give an advantage to the bigger organizations. Now, here's another thing, if we wanted to do, if we said, the grant can't be used to help pay for your employees, but your 25% match could be all in kind, with it being your employees administrating this if you didn't have the cash, is a thought.
I like that. Yeah. I mean, that definitely should work as well.
What about criteria that relate to impact of how the funds are being used? Like the number of people served or the geographic area served, is there going to be criteria around, we want to make sure we do something in each county if we can.
Well, considering the other work that's being done with this Place Matters, I would think that an equal distribution in the counties would be useful for all the other work groups that are out there trying to do things, because they can see it also happening around them and know that it's part of their work. So my initial reaction would be, let's divide it up by the 8 counties, and then have some flexibility of how it's distributed within each county, knowing that if you got a multi-county application, so let's say it's LKLP and they wanted to go after multiple counties, then they could apply, they would be looking at 3 counties, in total. One of the things that they keep coming out with grants now is they want this sustainability business. And, it is really, really hard on a little grant to figure out how in the world to make this sustainable.
Yeah.
And it can actually throw an innovative idea, it just messes it up. Because you're like, there's no way in the world I could get this. I wonder if we could, for this purpose only, look at it from the standpoint of, we want as many kids served as possible, okay? But we want it to be something that, we know it's never coming again. I mean, it's like a PC computer or something that we know we'll never figure out a way to sustain it, but this one time, it's good to be a child in the promise zone in 2022.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and one of the other areas just that was one of the focuses of this grant was COVID recovery, and how all the issues around COVID and school systems and all that have impacted young people. And one-time infusions to deal with that can make sense. Not saying, again, I'm not trying to lay out criteria that say this has to deal with COVID recovery and how to get young people reconnected or whatever some of those COVID issues were. But a lot of this, there was a big piece of funding from Blue Meridian that went to school systems, specifically to family resource centers and things, because families were having financial issues. And so those family resource centers were able to reach out and provide services to the families. Like the example that I keep hearing is where the family resource center was able to buy a refrigerator for a family when the refrigerator died and somebody was on insulin and they were having to keep the insulin in a cooler and didn't have a way to keep that medication stable. And so they were able to use these funds very quickly to move forward to get a refrigerator for that family, put it in the home and keep them safe, So I think those kind of one-time things are not out of a precedent for this, not unprecedented. So.
And that may be an argument, especially since the funder is really looking for that human impact story. It may be that the evaluation committee will want to look at this from the standpoint of, it's not quantity, but it's quality. We want a sizable intervention that makes a huge difference, and it can be one child in a county, but that is the difference, and because it tells such the great story. Just saying.
Sandy, and that brings up the follow-up grant reporting. So the follow-up grant report could be the bean counting, how many families were impacted, how many children, what counties were they in, but then it could also be share 3 pictures of the work that you've done. Give us an interest story, tell us about a child's story that was impacted or a family, so that it really, and I think, Donna, correct me if I'm wrong, there's not a ton of reporting parameters around this money, correct?
No. And just knowing that this is not a lot of money, in my and this is just my thinking on it again, is that I would do like a simple 3-question report almost that says, how was the money spent? How many families or young people did it serve? How many lives were touched? And maybe a little bit about how that,
Yeah.
And then one of those human interest stories that says,
Yeah.
well, here's an example. This illustrates what we really achieved with this and the impact that it had.
And I think, I agree. It's
Mhm.
keeping it simple and also keeping in mind, balancing how much money these grants are going to be.
Yeah. 'Cause it's not a huge amount of money to.
And also thinking about how the affiliates can use this for marketing as well. So is it a picture of the work that was being done? Is it a feel-good story that it gets put in the newsletter or, something like that? Because we do need to balance that as well. So I think that Donna is right on track with the very simple, the basics, almost the who, went, where, why, and how, and then how many kids. So yeah.
Is there any possibility of kicking this amount of money, making it greater with the impact fund or the Foundation for Appalachian Kentucky? I mean, it isn't a lot of money. It'd be nice if it were larger money to spread out.
That has not been a discussion that's been had. I do think that this is kind of a standalone with the Blue Meridian in like money. They just want to see where that goes. But yeah, it has not been a discussion.
And one thing, and I'll say real quickly, this is not a lot of money to get out to the communities. Blue Meridian is also supporting they're now supporting the work that we're doing with these webinars and the affiliate plans that we've been doing, because we felt like we were able to justify saying this work that these community foundations are doing are creating communities where children are safe, healthy, and supported overall. And so they saw fit to continue helping with this work. So they are invested in the Promise Zone in a lot of ways. So, we're almost at 1 o'clock already. Ooh, interesting conversation. Before we leave, what I would like to do is quickly, so I'll send these notes out to everybody, and maybe what we'll do is get folks to sign up to become part of the committee. It'd be great if we could get somebody from each of the affiliate foundations to do that. And then some folks from the 3 other non-Promise Zone affiliates to be on that, so that we have those neutral parties. 2. Oh, I thought we were going with 11. So anyway, we'll figure out who. Yeah, it's okay. It's all right. Yeah. But I wanted to quickly share a video about this grant making system, just so that you all see that. And let me see here. Let me go back to here. And so this is that Foundant system, and I will quickly play a video. It's about 6 minutes, so it's going to barely take us past 1 o'clock, but I'm hoping that you all can see this and hear. Are you able to hear that? No. Okay, I have to fix something. Sorry.
Donna, it's also not showing on our screen.
Oh, it's not.
It's the
Okay.
PowerPoint.
Okay.
Yeah, you'll need to pull up choose the correct screen.
Thank you. Oh, because it popped up in a different window, that's why. All right, I'm going to share again, and I think it will be that. I think this should do it now.
Lifecycle management.
Can you see that now?
Easy to
No,
use, comprehensive.
we can hear it, but we cannot see it.
Brent Lifecycle Manager.
Still the
Daggone it. Okay.
technology. Cruel mistress.
Yep, I do not know why that is doing that. All right, let me do one more thing here. If I go to the PowerPoint and stop the PowerPoint, maybe that will do it. My apologies, everybody.
All your tech people must be on vacation.
I'm the only one in the office this week. Can you tell?
Crazy.
All right, so I want to try this again. Screen 2 and share. And we'll go back. Now?
Yes.
Easy to use,
Yes.
comprehensive, complete. Founding Grant Lifecycle Manager is a fully cloud-based grants management solution that makes managing your grant programs easier and more efficient. Let's take a closer look at how this configurable, user-friendly solution makes you a better funder. Designed to facilitate and streamline the application process, Founded GLM provides instant access to everything your applicants need in one convenient location. Upon login, applicants can view both past and current applications, their status, as well as any reports or follow-up documentation. All these forms and stages have many automated reminders, such as past due, you've been assigned, you've submitted successfully, and much, much more. Submitting a new application is quick and efficient. The system automatically displays all active grant programs and offers the ability to provide access codes for those applications or grant programs that may not be public. To make your applicants more efficient and effective, we've integrated with GuideStar, which allows the applicants to download their GuideStar public profile directly to their application. If they've submitted applications in the past, they can simply use the copy feature to copy previous answers from one of those old applications into this new one. If letters of recommendation, transcripts, or other materials need to be collected anonymously from outside sources, applicants simply provide the context email, and the system takes care of the rest. However, applicants can still change and manage the process by seeing how that third party has responded, or if they have responded. Finally, a comprehensive print packet is available at any time, even after the application has been submitted. This capability is available for administrators, applicants, and your reviewers. This not only includes the questions and the answers to the application, but also any attachments. In addition to simplifying the process for applicants, Founded GLM gives administrators the ability to effortlessly manage grant programs and scholarship funds from a single location. From the centralized dashboard, administrators can easily review applications that have been submitted. And through integrations with GuideStar and Foundation Center, you have access to their GuideStar public profile, their IRS standing or charity check information, 990s, and a list of their past funders. If you want to see more information about that program, simply click on the details icon. Administrators have the ability to add comments for other reviewers or for the applicants prior to completing the application or sending it back to the applicant. Founded GLM also offers the ability to send emails directly from the system, utilizing a library of email templates or sending it from scratch. Founded GLM makes it simple for administrators to assign evaluators while providing them with easy access to applications and information they need to complete the review process. Founded GLM puts everything at the evaluator's fingertips, including LOI evaluations and application evaluations. Reviews can be set up a number of different ways. One of the most popular is our side-by-side evaluation, where your review form sits on the left and the request, which includes the application and maybe an LOI, sit on the right. Your evaluation forms can be built with scoring questions, comments, file uploads, drop-downs, or any of our question types. Once the evaluators have completed the evaluation, they simply click Save, and they're directed back to their list of applications they've been assigned. There are a few different ways to set up reviewers in the system, depending on what kind of access they need. A board member has access to an organization's history, including all their grant information, contacts. You can also give them access to search your entire database, which is read-only access. And we have a tool called Shared Documents, which is like Dropbox, where you can create folders and attach files or reports for your board members to have access to. From the dashboard, administrators can effectively manage both open and closed application evaluations, with the ability to review individual evaluations prior to or on the fly during board meeting. Follow-up actions, such as online grant agreements, grant reports, and other post-decision requirements, can easily be assigned at any time and are attached in the grant request for both administrators and grantees, These include due dates, which send automatic notifications to the applicants and administrators, letting them know they've been assigned, a reminder email, and a past due email. Additional capabilities include a powerful search engine that makes it easy to locate and utilize information, as well as the ability to export data or build custom reports. Administrators can also record payments, including dates and check numbers. Your grantees or students can see this information as well, so they know what's been paid and what hasn't. You also have the ability to budget. In this example, you can budget for the entire foundation between a time frame, or do it by process, scholarship fund, or grant program. Using our mail merge capability, easily design and build your board books or templates in Word, which will allow you to extract the data from your Founded database into your pre-built templates. Unlike other solutions, Founded GLM was created to allow users to configure the system to meet their specific needs with no special skills required. The point-and-click interface allows you to quickly and easily create questions using any of our different question types, manage the workflow of any grant process or scholarship fund. You can also leverage existing processes and create new ones with the click of a button using our copy features. From the application process to application review to preparing for board meetings, Founded GLM provides everything you need in one complete system. Let us help you manage your grant programs so your day-to-day life can be more efficient and even more enjoyable. To learn more about Founded GLM or register for our next webinar, please contact us today.
So that is the software. That was a very fast overview, but as Kristen said, there at some point we can set up a training to teach people about that software to help with that. So thank you all for joining today. Before we leave, the last thing I want to share is that on August 25th, we are going to have a webinar with Janet Topolsky, who is with the Aspen Institute. And this webinar is actually going to relate back to your all strategic plans again. So Janet and the folks at Aspen did this booklet on rural development hubs. And what this talks about, if I were to summarize it in 3 words, is that it's transformation instead of transaction. That's 4 words, but transformation over transaction. So you can have transactional relationships with grantees in your communities, or you could have transformational relationships. And I think that the Rural Development Hub idea allows for transformation that's regional. And so that's what we're going to be talking about in the next webinar with Janet. So we hope you can join us for that, August 25th at noon. I will get the invitation out for it quicker than I got this one out for this one today. So thank you all, and reach out if you have any questions or ideas about criteria. We'll send an email about that. So.
Hey, Donna, while everybody's logging out, can I stay on and share just an idea I had during that presentation?
Yep, sure thing.
Okay. So
Thanks,
it
Donna.
said that it all.
Thanks, Donna. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Bye.
I will actually stop recording.